What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. I have been on this never-ending quest for about the last year, maybe 2 years now, trying to find the perfect controller to pair up with my Nintendo Switch. I had recently just picked up a standalone controller from NYXI, which I'm doing some testing on right now, that I'm currently using to play on my TV, when they had reached out to me and asked me, hey, do you want to check out the Hyperion Pro? And I said, absolutely, because I am enjoying the other controller that I'm using, and that review will be sometime in the future. And this Joy-Con replacement solution is definitely a different one than some of the other ones I've looked at, and it comes with a lot of good, and maybe a couple of things that aren't so good. So we're going to take a look at this today and see what it's all about. So let's take a look. Just to get this out of the way real quick, this was provided to me from NYXI for a fair and honest review. No money exchange hands, and they will not see this before you do. Okay, so I thought we'd start off with a little unboxing quick because there's not a whole lot to it. And I'm actually not exactly sure how NYXI pronounces this controller's name. I actually had to go and watch a couple other people try to pronounce it, and it's been said a couple of different ways. So it's either Hyperion or Hyperion, and I think it actually is probably Hyperion if you were to do this phonetically, but I'm just not exactly sure. But either way, this NYXI Hyperion or Hyperion Pro comes in this fancy little box here that kind of just gives you a little display of what it's all about. It does talk about a couple of the features on the back, though it does miss some of the highlighting features on here, so we will go over those as well. It's a pretty simple packaging design. It's just going to be in here, packaged up. You are going to be able to see the controller right away, and underneath it, as you pull it out, a whole bunch of stuff falls out. You do get a USB A to C cable. That's going to be one of the first things that falls out of the box there for you right out of the bottom. Then you also do get this little connector thing where you put them together to make a solid controller. And we'll talk about the benefits of this as well. And then we also do get an origami flip book. This one's not an accordion. It is actually in flip book style, and it does look really big, but there's only a couple pages per language, and I would definitely recommend going through this if you want to do anything like use your memory, turbo functions, or set the M keys on the back of the controller. Other than that, the controller is nice and protected inside this little plastic doohickey, and we do have the controllers right here. And here they are. They do fit nicely into your hands. They are a little wider and bigger than any of the other controllers I have tested like this so far, and I have tested some from a few different brands on the channel here. These definitely are some of the bigger ones that I have definitely had my hands on. And I think that that kind of fills a little bit of a gap because there are some things about some of these controllers being small that really has kind of bothered me. But here are your controllers themselves. And then we will go through the I/O of these here real quick, and that'll kind of include our specs as well. These do work on the Nintendo Switch, Switch Lite, and Switch OLED. For Switch Lite, you are going to be using this adapter that does come with them, and also you can use this on the regular Switch or the OLED. But this adapter is definitely part of this overall package, and this turns this into a single controller, which is fairly comfortable. I'd imagine this is about the size of the new Steam controller that will be coming out soon. So you have trackpads on the bottom here. That one does have a little bit more curve to it, but as far as size-wise goes, it feels pretty similar to that. And these simply just come on and off like they do on a normal Switch when it's connected to your Switch. Now, each of these controllers does have a battery in it, and it takes about 2.5 to 3 hours per controller to charge if you do use the USB-C ports here on the bottom. So we are starting on the bottom, which we normally start on the top, but I just figured it would be a good jumping off point for us. Next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to put these back in here just to make this a little bit easier to show you guys. We will start here on the top. We do have our bumpers and triggers here on the top. Now, there is no lock on these triggers because Nintendo does not use triggers that work with pressure. So this is going to be a non-issue with this being set up specifically for Nintendo. On the back here, we do have our buttons here. This is going to be a release from both this and also from the Nintendo Switch itself. We do have memory buttons, and then we do have these little lightning bolts down here as well. Now, these are going to be used for programming, and then we do have an MR and ML button on the back here as well. So the back is full of different I/O, which is pretty cool, and both of these passed inspection. Nothing on the left or the right of the device, and we already went over the USB-C charging ports on the bottom. Now, this isn't the only way to charge these. You can also charge them when they are hooked into your Switch, so just charge your Switch and they will charge with that. One thing that is a little disappointing about this, and most of these controllers I've tested have this, there's no charging bank inside of this adapter plate. Usually you'll see a charging port in here instead of in the actual controllers themselves. Now, it is nice that these are battery operated, so you can use them separately, but it would be nice if you're not using these connected to your Switch all the time, it would be nice to have one single way to charge both of them through the plate itself versus being independent. But it's not a deal breaker, but it is something that would be nice. I tend to leave them on my Switch anyway, so they just charge up with that, and it's not a big deal. On the front here, we do have our plus and minus. If you can't read them on the buttons, it actually is written on the plate as well. We do have our face buttons. These are going to be your kind of teardrop face buttons you see that are more acrylic, and some maybe less expensive handhelds as far as the handheld market goes, but they actually work really well in this controller. I don't see any problems with them. They are a little loud because they are those acrylic buttons, but they are not the loudest ones I've seen on a controller by far, even recently. We do have a D-pad here. This is on switches, and it is very tight. We will talk a little bit more about this as we go along as well. We do have our turbo buttons, because this does have turbo. We do still have an image or camera button here, and we do have a home switch. It does do wake up, so now we have woken up the device. And before we move on, we do need to talk about, we do have HallEffect joysticks in here, as well as RGB around the joysticks, and we can change the colors of that just by simply holding the R3 and turbo button at the same time. And I'll show you how to change that once we get this plugged into the device. So it's pretty simple. It's just hitting the turbo button, which each of these has, and clicking the R3 or L3 button. Let's go over the last couple of specs here real quick, just because there are a couple of other things. So these are really a Joy-Con replacement. Now, Joy-Cons are known for getting stick drift, which has been a big problem with them, and every single set of Joy-Cons I've ever had from Nintendo has gotten that, and I've replaced those sticks with HallEffects. These come with the HallEffect sticks built in, which is a huge bonus to anybody who's used a Nintendo Switch and had that problem. I do believe that these are also Hall triggers, though it does not say on any of their literature if these are Hall triggers. They seem like they could be. They also could just be on a dome, so they are pretty soft. They're too soft to be on a Switch itself, so it's hard to tell exactly what those are without taking it apart. With connectivity here, we do have the Bluetooth, which you saw when you wake it up here. This is using a Bluetooth connection, which will then in turn wake up the device. Otherwise, you do have the mounted connection as well when you take these off of here and you place them right onto the Switch. And I'm going to be honest, in most of my playtime with this, in fact, almost all of it has been with these attached to the Switch itself, because I think that's where I'm going to get the most value out of this. So this is typically how I've been using this. And then, as I said before, we do have turbo, we do have the RGB around the rings, and then we do have the ML and MR buttons on the back, as well as this adapter that we've just taken a look at. And like I said, I can show you how to change the RGB lights around your actual joystick, and then also up here, as they do match. And it really is as simple as, here, we'll wake it up. And so now that it's awake, and then you have to wake up each controller, but what you do is you hold the turbo and the L3 or R3 button at the same time, and you can actually change it. Now, you can't just rifle through it. You got to hit the button again. And there we go. So now we got a rainbow color in there. Now we got red, which I believe is what it was when I got it. And here's our yellow, blue, green, purple, and orange. And this side over here does the same thing. It's just turbo and the button, or the L3 button, I guess. It is a little awkward, but it works. I don't know why I like the orange on here. Probably because I use orange for a lot of stuff here on the channel. And it kind of matches this game here, too. I didn't realize that till right now, but that's kind of neat, I guess. I do wish that the colors would change with the gameplay like you do see on some controllers out there. It's just not a feature that's built into these particular controllers. Let's talk about this D-pad here real quick, because this is kind of the elephant in the room for me. I'm not a fan of this D-pad at all. I tried playing a couple of fighting games. There is no Shinoukens or Shoryukens. You really have a hard time, at least I do, hitting all the buttons I want to. It's very stiff, so let's see if we can, and it's very clicky. So as you go around on here, you can see how stiff it is. It doesn't have a whole lot of play. It doesn't feel like it has much of a central pivot. There is a little pivot there, but it really doesn't feel like there's a central pivot present on here. Unlike these face buttons, which actually do have a decent amount of travel and pretty quick rebound, actually. They come back real fast. I've never been a fan of like these acrylic clear buttons. It always, for some reason, makes things feel cheap. I know that's what people always say. These don't feel super cheap. In fact, even in person, they don't look super cheap, but they are a little clacky like those buttons are. I think usually you get burrs and stuff in these, and I think that's why I don't like them, but these ones here seem to be working just fine, so I don't see any issue with using those at all. Now, as far as programming these back buttons, you can use any buttons on the controller, but it is specific to the controller side. You specifically just hit the M button, and then you hit the button you want, and you can program it to this back button. You can program every button here, but it has to be to whichever is on that side, which does make it a little difficult in some situations. For the most part, for what I do with these, not a big deal. Some people may find a little off-putting because you're not going to be able to program them crosswise, and that's just something with them running independently as they do. But again, I don't see a problem with that. It's not a big deal for me. And then the other thing is you do have your turbo. So you can set your turbo buttons just by hitting the button, hitting what you want, going back to it, and it will use a turbo feature on that button if you hit the turbo function. So pretty easy. It's pretty self-explanatory. They have an absolutely fantastic manual here. I go through the manuals on all these devices, and this one here, actually, I learned something and was able to do it without going and looking at a video or something like that, or looking online to try and find better directions. This worked really well. You can also use these independently, just like you could a normal Joy-Con, and that would be just by switching it out here, and you do actually have those buttons here that you would have on a normal Joy-Con. Now, I don't think this is going to fit in most of your Joy-Con accessories. I know it's not going to fit in my like little steering wheel for Mario Kart or anything like that, but you do have the ability to run these independently. As far as setting them up for the first time, you really just have to slide them in. If for some reason they're not reading, which I didn't have a problem with, they just immediately read. Otherwise, you just go under your controller, and you just go under your grip order, and it will pop up and you can see it then. And on one of my Switches, it does show up as a Pro controller. Now, I know I started off by saying that this works on the Switch Lite, and the Switch OLED. This actually works on the Switch 2 as well. And right now, if you do order these from NYXI's website, they will send you a free adapter plate to make these work with that Switch 2. So you will get a Switch 2 adapter plate for right here to use these controllers. I believe it actually, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it works on all of NYXI's controllers right now that are set up specifically for the Switch like this. I know this one in general it is. They definitely gave me that information. But you can get that backplate for free if you do order it through NYXI's website. So big advantage for ordering from them. And I will throw a link to that down in my thingamabob so you can take advantage of that promo. There isn't a whole lot of testing I can show you on this other than just playing games. I mean, there's not, it's on a Switch right now, right? So I'm not going to be able to show you polling tests and stuff like that. I'd say that they do pretty well. Not really any latency. Typically, controllers are a little stiffer in the joysticks than this one is. They are a little bit looser, which I know a lot of people prefer. I'm more of a stiff controller person, but this actually, after a little bit, doesn't really bother me. The only thing I have a hard time doing is playing rally games. If I'm going to try to do some racing rally games, I am struggling with these controllers. I don't want to go and pretend like this is the best game. I'm like the best at this game. But on a normal controller, I definitely do a little bit better. I am getting better as I've been using these here for the last few days, but it's just not quite there yet. I tend to oversteer, and then I'm kind of screwed when I'm doing rally games, but it is getting better, and so I think with a little bit more play, I will adjust to these. They are also very lightweight, which I'm not really that used to. I do wish that some other controllers I have were light like this. They kind of almost feel similar to the Joy-Cons when it comes to holding your Switch up at the same time. They're nice like that, and the ergonomics on these are super comfortable. As you can tell, I'm just having a hard time recovering because it swings so far. You do have a lot of travel with these joysticks, which I found actually works really good on other racing games. I just, for some reason, struggle on this particular game, so I thought I would embarrass myself and use this one to do some demonstration. One thing you don't want to do in this game is oversteer, or you're screwed. So I just need a little bit more practice with these. I think I'll be just fine. I'm actually using in the Switch Pro controller, and these are actually probably going to be almost better once I get used to them. But it is still currently a challenge. It's always a little frustrating when you put on a different controller and you can't play the games the same as you play them on other stuff. But on the flip side of this, first-person shooters are way better because you're able to zone in a lot quicker. So you got to take the good with the bad. So all in, I think this is a really good controller. I don't find myself using the D-pad on the Switch all that often. I know it sounds really dumb, but I don't usually go back and play my old school games on the Switch just because I emulate those games, or I play them on original equipment, one way or the other. I'm not usually going back and playing old school games myself personally on the Nintendo Switch. So this D-pad here becomes more just for like changing weapons and stuff like that. And again, I did try using it in some fighting games. I just, maybe with a little bit more time I could figure it out, but it's not real fluid for making those quick like Shadoukens and stuff like that. It has a hard time, or I have a hard time making that corner. But maybe you'll be just fine. I'm kind of a small guy, but I've got weird long fingers, so I might just be overshooting it too. That is also with this being a stick-centric device with the D-pad on the bottom here. Now, if the D-pad was on top, it might force you a little bit more into it, but with the way the design is, I think it works out just fine. The other thing is I wish that this did have a charging port in it, But you know what? It is what it is. It works just fine with or without it. And again, when I'm using these controllers, I'm typically using them on here anyways, so they're charging as I'm using them. All in, I've really enjoyed using this controller. Setup is really easy. It immediately recognized it, including just even being able to use the home for wake up. So everything there works really, really well. And then programming worked flawlessly. Again, it's only a couple pages in the manual to read the whole thing, and if you read it, it's really simple. It's out there. It's a little awkward trying to change the colors on the joysticks and these cutouts here, but once you get them set to your color, I don't know why you'd keep changing them anyways. I know I haven't changed them since I did it, other than to demonstrate to you how to do it. So I don't see that being an issue either. If you're asking, could I recommend these? I absolutely could recommend these to somebody who's looking for some lightweight controllers that are very ergonomic. And I did kind of forget to mention how comfortable these are in your hands, but these are extremely ergonomic controllers. And now that you're able to use these on the Switch 2, thanks to that adapter plate, I think that gives these a lot more mileage. And again, that plate is free if you order these off their website, and there will be a link down below. It's also going to be an affiliate link, so it helps me out, but mostly I just want you guys to make sure you're taken care of. That other controller I had picked up from NYXI is the Flexi, and this is for that person that can't decide if they want their D-pad on the top or the bottom over here on the left-hand side, and that's what makes it so flexible. But don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends, because sharing is caring. It also helps grow the channel. Growing the channel just helps us get cooler and cooler stuff to show you, so let's grow some more together. Once you're done with all that, there will be a couple of videos that'll pop up here on the screen for you for some other videos YouTube has decided that you're going to like. So I would definitely take a look at one of those, because they know your algorithm better than you do, because, well, they wrote it. So that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!